The year is 2014. Latvia has joined the Eurozone, Germany wins the FIFA World Cup, and Supergiant Games has just released an indie title called Transistor. It's a small game, but it's enjoyed pretty well by the people who play it. 2 years later, in 2016, I pick it up for the first time, only to play it for around 30 minutes, recognize that I don't really get it, and put it down, telling myself that I will get back around to it eventually. So passes a decade, but I am here to report that I did finally get back around to it because I beat the game at like 4 a.m. this morning. Technically last night because I did it on the yesterday of the sleep, but like, whatever. I beat it 8 hours ago as of writing this script, and the thing about only beating it 8 hours ago is that I never really stopped thinking about Transistor. For the roughly 9 years that the game sat on the bench watching me play other games, patiently waiting for its time in the spotlight, I never forgot that it was there. I think the reason I didn't really get it was a combination of its top-down, unangleable camera, specifically mixed with the way its default controls are laid out. Despite a soundscape and visual style with incredible polish and unique personality, the actual gameplay felt remarkably clunky to me, with WASD to move, but 1, 2, 3, 4 to select abilities, and then the mouse to also move but also use your abilities, but you can also use the mouse wheel to select your abilities. It was all just a bit odd for me. It wouldn't be until I developed an obsession with Hades, a game with a top-down, unangleable camera but with best-in-class controls, also developed by Supergiant Games, released 6 years post, that I realized I might have just misunderstood Transistor, and the game moved from the back of my mind to something slightly more forward in my mind. Of course, it's been, over 2 years now since my video on Hades, so clearly Transistor wasn't a pressing concern for me, but also, I was never not aware of it, especially as I moved further and further into the world of media analysis. So for a number of reasons that are not overly important to the actual production of this product, I recently had good reason to come back, to look at Transistor again, and to explore the idea that I had missed something my first time around, that I had simply misunderstood what the game wanted from me, how it wanted to be played, and as a result, I got the chance to experience a very cool game in a way that I had missed for almost a decade. I love this job. Have I done a cool intro recently? Let's do a cool intro. Okay, so, right off the bat, I want to establish something very important. Having played Hades to a point of rather high competency at the height of my interest, it is remarkably easy to look at Transistor and see it as something akin to a proof of concept for Hades. From the art style and visual direction to the soundscape and the use of music as character accompaniment to the mechanical functioning of the world and the enemies, even to the vocal talent present in the game. It took Asher Kendrell all but one spoken word for me to point at the screen because that's Thanatos. More than that, you'll perhaps recognize the musical styling of one Darren Korb here in Transistor, alongside Ashley Lynn Barrett, both of whom would go on to play massive roles in Hades. None so massive, of course, as Logan Cunningham, who performs the role of Transistor's narrator, the talking sword carried by the game's protagonist Red, only for Logan to later show up in Hades as not only Hades, but also Poseidon and also Achilles and also Charon and also Astarius and also the storyteller. Truly, Olympus, thy name is Logan. Now stop. Stop typing. I know that Logan also did the narration for Bastion and Pyre as well. I know that Kristen Wilson, who voices that aforementioned Red, as well as Sybil Rees, has credits for Bastion and Pyre. This is not an essay to talk about Supergiant Games and their respectable affinity for running a dedicated crew on a tight ship. What this is me making a very simple request. Do not look at this game as a proof of concept for Hades. Even if that's what the Steam page for Hades asks you to do, because okay, yes, it's kind of a proof of concept for Hades, everything that Supergiant made before Hades is. But just saying that betrays all of the things that makes Transistor a powerful experience worth having. It fundamentally talks down on the existence of a very cool thing, and you risk missing a great thing because you're looking at the thing standing on the shoulders rather than the giant itself. So let's look at Transistor not as a building block for something bigger, but as an experience all its own. Returning to Transistor, I quickly came face to face with the same problem I'd had years ago. The control scheme for the game was fighting me just as much as any of the bad guys in these levels, which was a bit sad. Truthfully, I had hoped that the problem had simply been me, and that with my 85 plus hours in Hades, I'd have gotten a feel for the way that Transistor was supposed to be played. I tried to brute force the default controls for mouse and keyboard, admittedly perhaps an error of my own making, as Hades controls best on controller, but I still haven't even tried Transistor off of mouse and keyboard because of one key discovery I made. You see, after getting locked down at the first boss, I had the thought that surely I'm not the only one confounded here. So I spent some time doing some homework only to find this comment on the Steam forums, wherein the user says that they just set up the game's controls to play like League of Legends. And I thought about this hotbar, and then I thought about this hotbar. And I thought about these mouse clicks, and then I thought about these mouse clicks. And then I thought about these inhuman monsters intent on being the worst forms of themselves possible, and you know what? You get the idea. What I'm trying to say is that I'm remarkably comfortable with the control scheme for League of Legends, and the ability to turn Transistor into a game that functions the same unlocked the world for me. Having molded the mechanical experience more to my taste, I quickly found that there was a lot to appreciate here. Our protagonist Red, wielding the talking and titular Transistor, ooh, that was a fun sentence, starts off with a small repertoire of abilities, and because of how games work, we will see her gain more and more abilities over the duration of the experience, either by narrative events or choices from level ups. After fighting Sibyl, the first boss of the game for example, you will gain the Help ability from defeating her, which lets you summon Luna the dog, so objectively this game kicks ass. Now, you only get 4 slots for abilities, despite the game offering you, if memory serves, around 24 different options across your time in Cloudbank. Now, this is partially because more things is more funds, but it's also a critical part of how the game functions. You see, each ability, called a function, can be used as an active element, an upgrade element, or a passive element, and as you level up, you will get to choose between more memory to equip more functions, access to upgrade slots to augment your functions, or access to passive slots, letting functions apply effects to Red directly. And this is remarkably cool because you can only equip 4 functions, yes, but each ability can in theory be supported by 2 other functions or support Red specifically, meaning that there's dozens, if not hundreds, of different theoretical combinations for you to use to define your mechanical relationship to the combat in this game with. And you'll want to be familiar with more than just a few of them because your functions also exist as a sort of health bar or life counter. Whenever you drop to 0 health, the Transistor will overload, temporarily disabling the use of a random actively equipped function, and it's not until you run out of functions in a fight that you'll get a game over. Lose a function but win the fight, and you'll be locked out of using that specific function until visiting a certain number of access points, places where you can swap out your functions, meaning that you likely won't be able to just coast through on 2 or 3 combos. You'll need more than that in case you lose access to parts of your core function. All combined, the functions of Transistor are 1 part representation of the player's personality and relationship to the mechanics, and 1 part the literal lifeblood of Red as you control her. It is a genuinely remarkable system that feels so unique to Transistor, and it continuously invites the player back to try something new, to experiment some more. The design of Transistor is largely that of an Art Deco style influence. Dark colors, bold highlights, tall towers, lots of lines, gold and brass galore, you get the vibe. Mixed in with that, however, is just a splash of some cyberpunk style luminosity and color design for flavor. It gives the entire world of Transistor, this city of Cloudbank, a sort of tone and world design aesthetic that I don't really think I've ever seen anywhere else. And that alone would make it cool even if the world were not immaculately prepared, which it is, and the game seems to delight in proving that to you. The world looks great. And you won't get to explore all of it, but that's okay, because there's also a real sense of presence given to any individual locale in the game. Despite the incredible aesthetic and world design, Transistor is not an open world experience, but rather it sort of mimics one via different boards that you travel to and from, with incredible skyboxes and backgrounds to add presence. go to a board, clear it, experience it, explore it, and then move on to the next. It's a style of localized world interaction that is similar to what we'd eventually see in Hades, a comparison I make only to highlight how much more I appreciate the style presented in Transistor. For compare, Hades is a game that does not need to present each board with design akin to a recognizable lived-in world. It can simply say, here is Lava Lake 12,834. Here is Dungeon Room 2330. Behold, Snake. And that's chill, that's fine, it does what it needs to do, but what Transistor needs to do is different. Things are bad in Cloudbank. There's a mechanical process, called the process, currently overriding and deconstructing the entire city, and there's a small but constant bit of horror to the game to realizing that you are traversing through locales specifically designed to house and facilitate people and all of the things we'd want from a city, only for there to be absolutely no one here. Every locale is designed around approximating the human experience. Courtyards, bars, shops, bazaars, homes, apartments, all of this should have people. The game even wonders aloud at times, where is everyone? The emptiness of the world, coupled with the incredible, seemingly purposeful design of each locale, changes the states of these boards from just being arenas where combat is supposed to happen to an integral and critical part of the game's narrative and plot. Yeah, there should be people here. But the world is ending. A massive part of what you are paying for with the price of admission to experience the end of the world includes one ticket to the Darren Korb and Ashley Barrett show. And more powerful than the world design and local structure of any given board is the musical accompaniment to it all, which is a struggle for me. I've said before, I will say now, and I will say again whenever it is relevant, that talking about music is a point of difficulty for me. I don't have an understanding of it that makes me feel qualified. I don't get how music works. I don't have the language to dissect it. There's basically nothing else that makes me feel less qualified. But the music of this game is so important to the structure of the game that I have to talk about it. But I can't tell you what the music is. I can't tell you how it works. What I can tell you is it's one of the best soundtracks I've ever experienced in a game. I'm saying that in compare to Hades. I'm saying that in compare to the Halo series, in compare to Haven and Neva. From the big to the small, I am at least familiar with phenomenal scores and soundtracks in my favorite medium, and Transistor sits comfortably with the best of them. There is so much weight on the OST to help commune the artistic intent of the world and design of Transistor, the loneliness, the subtle horror, the genuine melancholy of surviving a terrible thing and bearing the weight of knowledge that a lover didn't, understanding and facing a world that is quite literally breaking around you, that your continued existence is an obligation to try and save something. It's haunting. Most of these tracks are without vocals, but not notably all of them. The Spine, Paper Boats, and We All Become all contain vocals provided by Barrett and are presented as diegetic, being songs written and composed in-universe by Red, who, like Barrett, was a vocalist and performer of great renown in-universe before her voice was stolen from her during an attack at the start of the game. They're songs that, even without her voice, she will still try to hum along to at times. This inherent connection between the music and our surrogate is also part of what makes defining the soundtrack so difficult. So much of the emotional impact I feel when listening to the soundtrack comes not from the music itself, but from the linkage between those songs and the events they accompany. I just hope you believe me and understand me when I tell you that the price of admission for this game is worth it, just to experience the music in its intended domain. The story of Red begins with a corpse and a talking sword, and in a neat twist, these two things are one and the same. The titular transistor is something of a massive blade in the stylization of a computer chip that is capable of absorbing what is known as trace. It's a sort of non-corporeal technological life essence of a person. The transistor is then capable of condensing the whole of a person into a function, these becoming the abilities that you will use during the game. Meaning, of course, that the talking part of the talking sword is the corpse, or at least what's left of them, preserved and contained within this weaponized housing. A significant thing to know about this is that typically the wielder of the transistor is incapable of communing with the trace within the transistor, only being able to contact traces that they were close to and understood before they were absorbed. This means that the trace of the corpse inside the transistor that we hear is that of a person that Red was remarkably fond of, and the game will highlight this because, importantly, the source of the trace, a person who I will refer to as Auden, was not the intended target of the attack that killed him. Red was. It's important to note, however, that Red did not escape unscathed. A group known as the Camarada attempted to take her life, only succeeding in stealing her voice, leaving our leading lady a mute. So it is that the transistor, both metaphorically and literally, speaks for her now. Technically, Auden's trace here is referred to as unknown, and that's quite literal, in fact. The transistor is incapable of recognizing their trace, which is actually kind of a very bad thing as it causes a very real malfunction. You see, the transistor was wielded by the Camarada, a shadow society intent on bending Cloudbank to their will, and to do this they used the transistor. Far more than just a special sword, the transistor is something of a literal key to the city, able to control the entirety of the city's design and structure via that entity known as the Process, a collection of robots that construct, and importantly for the story, deconstruct the city of Cloudbank according to the whims of its controller. Now, the Camarada had their own plans here to control the Process to their own will and to further enable the transistor by collecting valuable and specific traces, such as Red's. But with an unrecognizable trace loaded into the transistor, the system malfunctions and suddenly, the Process have no controller. So the Process simply becomes to break down everything. Stone, wood, water, flesh, it's all got to go. In so, the story of Transistor sees you as Red, accompanied by Auden, as you fight your way deeper and deeper into a dying city in an attempt to confront the Camarada to force them to reverse this. The tragedy of the story being that the Camarada are not in control of what's happening. Rather, the Process is happening because the Camarada have lost control. The story eventually transitions from how do we save the city to what do you do as a lone survivor when there's nothing left to save. One of my favorite bits about Transistor's story, though, is that there's actually a second story, Secret, happening silently in the background the whole while you're playing through your own. And this story stars one Amelia Garber. Throughout the world of Transistor, you may find and interact with OVC terminals, and these terminals have a number of uses. Ordering food, for example, or voting on what the weather should be the next day, or the color of the sky. The use that matters now is that they serve as a place to read local news, and this is where we meet Amelia. Amelia is a reporter, and over the course of the game, terminals will reveal more and more of her story as she publishes it, should you only, say it with me now, pay attention to the world around you. You know I love that sentence. Amelia's story is one of remarkable tragedy, as her reports start off by reporting that something has happened and that Traverson Hall and the surrounding area is just gone. She follows this with another report early the next day, stating that the Process has spread to 66% of the entire city, consuming and deconstructing everything it touches. When Red, a high-profile figure beloved by the city, isn't found among the survivors, Amelia even reports on a vigil held to mourn your assumed death as the expected toll rises. Her final message, farewell to Cloudbank, is as total as it comes, detailing that herself and all of the remaining survivors of the city have been pinned in by the approaching Process. If you've been wondering where all of the people are, it's here, with Amelia, trying to find somewhere safe in a world where that's not a thing anymore. Watching as the Process consumes until there is simply nothing left around them, knowing that they are next. It's such a little thing, but to design a world that comes with an inherent question, where is everyone, only to then answer that question through small, tiny, optional, missable avenues like the OVC terminals, is one of my favorite, most endearing things in games. And it's selfish, it's self-congratulating, I know, to say this, to say yes please, hide little trinkets for me, a real fan to find, somewhere only someone like me, who really cares about the game, would go. But also, I love this world, and I loved exploring it. I can't be upset if you reward me for doing so. And really, I think I'm doing them a disservice by calling these elements little trinkets, because with some thought, I think they actually have quite a bit of power. It starts instantly, too, with the first prompt of the game, pulling the transistor from Auden's corpse, the prompt also presenting how many people the transistor has killed today. that being 1. Accessing the Amphitheater Parkway will inform you how many popular music venues are in the area. Approaching the box office will tell you how many shows are currently planned. Heading to the floating point will give you a record of how many marriages have been proposed there, and even heading into this bathroom will give you the facility's privacy rating. As I am writing this, I'm finding that there are actually 2 points of value to this. Firstly, yeah, there's charm and whimsy to it. It's a cute way of fleshing out a world design, of establishing who's here, what goes on in an area. It's fun. It's also rather scary. When you go to Floating Point, it feels like you should basically be flipping a coin on if you'll be seeing a proposal today from any of the people there, but when you go, all you find is dust and echoes. There are 48 shows planned for venues and spaces in Amphitheater Parkway, but no one will ever perform here again. The bathroom has a 100% privacy rating, at least until the process deconstructs the door, and the stall, and the building, and anyone who might happen to be in it. To present so much information and detail, so much proof of life and personality to a world, only for that world to actually have none of it left is such a remarkably powerful thing. To be able to showcase what is versus what should be. I find it all very good. Transistor is a game that I was over a decade late to. It is a game that I put away because I didn't understand it but could never really say goodbye to. It is a game that I wish I had connected with sooner but am so glad to connect with now. When Hades would go on to achieve critical success, when it would go on to win the first ever Hugo Award for Best Video Game, when it would go on to become one of my favorites, it is undeniable that Transistor played a crucial part in establishing what Hades would look like, and that alone would be a reason to play and love Transistor. But there's still so many reasons more, reasons unique to Transistor, reasons that only exist within this experience. And a decade later, it is still an experience worth having. Okay, do me a favor, go ahead and just ignore the fact that I'm using the outro sequence from the previous video. I had to make a pivot during the production cycle this month, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. Or whatever. Hey, before I let you go, I need to give a special thank you to Jordan, Ivan Thanosi, Daddy Biscuit 22, Device MD, New Kind of Tired, T.Log, Charlie Bell, Ginger Crow, and William Wheatley. These incredible people, as well as everyone else who's ever made the call to help produce the content I make, are a massive part of why I even get to do this in the first place. If you want to see your name in the credits for my work, get access to that work early, or just support a channel you like, consider making the jump yourself. Thank you.